This is Hayes Q Jones, your DVD and Blu-ray baller on a budget, and this is HQ Videos for you. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're a current subscriber, what's up? You're greatly appreciated. Come on in, make yourself at home. This channel is for collectors of all kinds. Doesn't matter what your genre is, doesn't matter what your format is. Your format could be 4K, 3D, Blu-ray, VHS, doesn't matter. Same with the genre. Could be drama, sci-fi, horror, documentaries. You guys are all welcome here. This week for my collection video, I wanted to give you my top 10 best black exploitation movies. If you're not familiar with the term blaxploitation, it refers primarily to a wave of independently produced genre films of the early 70s. The name is a combination between black and exploitation. Black exploitation films were produced independently and typically with extremely low budgets. Black exploitation films were predominantly made by black crews for black audiences, though more widespread appeal around the world was found. Crime, sex, drugs, and racial tensions were common subjects for black exploitation movies. Under the black exploitation umbrella, all major genres of films can be found from action to horror to musical. I wanted to focus on the more positive black exploitation films. There's no disrespect to movies like The Mac, Superfly, Foxy Brown, or the classic Melvin Van Peebles' Sweetback's Badass Song. No disrespect for those movies, fantastic movies. I have them in my collection. Just talked about Sweetback last week. I wanted to focus on the more positive black exploitation of this period, the ones where we were portrayed as heroes or just common folks that do extraordinary things. So this is my top 10 list. If you have some that I didn't mention, you know the routine, add in the comments. Now, without further ado, sit back, relax, have a drink of a smoke, and I'll catch you on the other end of this video. We're back at the Black Cave, back at the Black Cave. We are back at the motherfucking Black Cave. I'm going to kick it off with my number 10 pick for my best black exploitation pictures. Even though there's 4 here, all these are great movies though, but my number 10 is Three the Hard Way. This is a 1974 action crime drama. This was directed by Gordon Parks Jr., one of the first black directors in Hollywood. Amazing director. Harry Burson, produced by Harry Burson, written by Eric Berkovici. This stars Jim Brown, Fred Williamson, Jim Kelly, Sheila Frazier, and Jay Robinson. The plot behind this: a record producer, a PR man, and a black belt in karate foil a white supremacist plot to poison the water supply. And this is probably one of the first kind of action team movies and stuff like that, kind of like a modern day version of the Expendables. You have 3 of the biggest names back then in black entertainment: Jim Brown, the ex-football player, Fred Williamson, and the martial artist Jim Kelly. Fantastic story. I don't think this has a Blu-ray yet. I think Black Belt Jones just came out with a Blu-ray, Warner Archives last year. Hot Potato, I think they go by a different name also. Tattoo Connection, I'm not positive. Black Samson and Three the Hard Way. So excellent movie. If you're not familiar with the black exploitation period, this is a great one to cut your teeth on. And of course, this is a Warner Brother release. Number 10 pick, Three the Hard Way. My number 9 pick is the 1973 action crime drama movie, The Spook Who Sat at the Door. This was directed and produced by Ivan Dixon. If you don't know who Ivan Dixon is, if you watch the old show Hogan's Heroes, he's the only black guy in Hogan's Heroes. This was written by Sam Greenlee. This stars Lawrence Cook, Janet Leigh, Paula Kelly, J.A. Preston, and Paul Butler. The plot behind this: a black man plays Uncle Tom in order to gain access to CIA training, then uses that knowledge to plot a new American revolution. And this movie was so powerful and so politically volatile at the time that the CIA actually played a role in having this taken out of the theaters. And I don't believe Ivan Dixon, I don't think his career was ever the same after this. It's a great story. Essentially, of a black man doing what he has to do to rise in the ranks without the CIA, infiltrate them, and try to start a civil rights movement within the CIA. Again, fantastic movie. Don't know if this will ever see a Blu-ray. It's a Monarch Home Entertainment release. Not familiar with that distributor. So I'm sure it's a small independent distributor though, but fantastic movie. My number 9 pick, 1973's The Spook Who Sat at the Door. My number 8 pick is the 1972 action crime drama romance Trouble Man. This was directed by Ivan Dixon, who just directed the last movie I just talked about, The Spook Who Sat at the Door. This was produced and written by John D.F. Black. This stars Robert Hooks, Paul Winfield. You might know Paul Winfield from the movie Sounder. Ralph Waite, William Smithers, Paula Kelly. The plot behind this: it seems that the masked men are knocking over the floating crap games of Chalky and Pete. Chalky and Pete hire the cool, loose, elegant Mr. T to fix things. Then the masked manipulators set up the death of a collector for a rival gang lord. It looks like it's up to Mr. T to hold a gang war from breaking out, keep the police off his back, and earn his fee from Chalky and Pete. And this is just a really slick movie. Again, in the 70s, especially this was 1972, you didn't see a lot of well-dressed black men in movies. If they were portrayed as pimps or drug dealers. Again, very well-spoken, cool swag, and again, just kind of a James, I don't say James Bond, kind of like a James Rockford, PI type of character though, which again at the time was very monumental. So my number 8 pick is the 1972 crime drama, and this is a Kino Lorber release if you didn't know, Trouble Man. My number 7 pick is the 1974 action crime thriller Truck Turner. This was directed by Jonathan Kaplan, produced by Paul M. Heller, written by Oscar Williams. This stars Isaac Hayes, the great soul singer, R&B singer, Yaphet Kotto, you might know him from the movie Live and Let Die, Alan Weeks, Annazette Chase, and Michelle Nichols, who was a very attractive woman. I think I had a crush on her as a kid. The plot behind this: Truck Turner and his partner Jerry, who make their living as bounty hunters in Los Angeles, are hired to hunt down Gator, a pimp who has skipped bail. And another kind of PI movie. The difference between Truck Turner and Trouble Man: he's a little bit more cool, a little bit more street, as you can see here. And just Isaac Hayes just exudes coolness and just coolness, calmness. And he has a interesting sense of humor. So my number 7 pick, Kino Lorber, Isaac Hayes, Truck Turner. My number 7 pick is the 1975 comedy Let's Do It Again. It's directed by Sidney Poitier, produced by Pembroke J. Herring, written by Richard Wesley. This stars Sidney Poitier, Bill Cosby, Calvin Lockhart, John Amos, you might know him from Good Times, Jimmy Walker from Good Times, Ozzie Davis, Denise Nichols, George Foreman has a very small part in this. Jane Kennedy, who I definitely had a crush on as a kid, has a very small part in this. The plot behind this: Clyde Williams and Billy Foster are a couple of blue-collar workers in Atlanta who
who have promised to raise funds for their fraternal order, the Brothers and Sisters of Shaka. However, their method for raising the money involves traveling to New Orleans and rigging a boxing match. And Sidney Poitier and Bill Cosby had such great chemistry together. They did another movie called Uptown Saturday Night. Great movie. This is very iconic. One reason, and this is another notorious big reference, one of the characters played by Calvin Lockhart, and if you ever saw Predator 2, he was the Rastafarian with the dreads. Calvin Lockhart's name in this movie was Biggie Smalls, and that's Notorious Biggs. That's his AKA Biggie Smalls, AKA the great Frank White. And besides just having a load of big names in here, besides Bill Cosby, Sidney Poitier, again, Ozzie Davis and Ruby Dee, great couple, married till they died. You even had a scene where George Foreman, Bill Cosby, challenges George Foreman to a fight. I won't give you the rest of it though, but it's a very cool scene. You have Jane Kennedy in there, looking lovely as ever, but great movie. And just love how it portrayed these guys as just normal blue-collar workers trying to take their wives and trying to help their fraternal order get some money. So my number 10987 pick, and this is a Warner Brothers release. Bill Cosby, Sidney Poitier. Let's do it again. My number 6 pick is the 1972 action horror thriller Blackula. This was directed by William Crane, produced by Samuel Z. Arkoff, written by Joan Torres. This stars William Marshall, Vanetta McGee, Denise Nichols, Damulus Rasula, Gordon Pinsett. The plot behind this: an 18th century African prince is turned into a vampire while visiting Transylvania. 2 centuries later, he rises from his coffin, attacking various residents of LA, and meets Tina, a woman who he believes is a reincarnation of his deceased wife. And this is probably the first, or if not the first, one of the first black horror movies. I know after this, they had a movie called Blackenstein, which kind of sucked though, but it's still interesting. And what's also interesting about this movie is the main character who plays Blackula, William Marshall. He wasn't an athlete, was a comedian, still was a trained thespian. He acted on Broadway. He was a Shakespearean, so trained actor, but however, he was kind of relegated doing B movies and black exploitation movies like Blackula. But if it were not for movies like Blackula, you wouldn't have movies like A Vampire in Brooklyn with Eddie Murphy. You definitely wouldn't have Blade with Wesley Snipes. So this is an iconic and foundational movie for black cinema and black actors. My number 1098765 pick, Blackula. Oh, by the way, this is a Scream Factory release. My number 5 pick is the 1973 action adventure crime drama thriller Cleopatra Jones. It's directed by James Jack Stewart. It's produced and written by Max Julian from, I believe it's from Mac. This stars Tamara Dobson, Bernie Casey, Brenda Sykes, Antonio Fargas. You might know him as Huggy Bear from Starsky and Hutch. Dan Fraser. The plot behind this: after federal agent Cleopatra Jones orders the burning of a Turkish poppy field, the notorious drug lord Mommy vows to destroy her. And this again is another first. You have a black woman playing a CIA agent, and very, very attractive woman, very tall. I believe she was a model. I think she's like 6 feet. Don't know what happened to her career after this, why she didn't do more movies, though. Would have been a great jump-off point. I think she could have been equivalent to Pam Grier. Not quite as sexy as Pam Grier, though, but still quite attractive. Great action heroine, but her career really didn't go anywhere after that, possibly just because of how Hollywood was at the time, and wasn't a lot, again, black actresses having leading roles, so this is why it's such a monumental movie. And this is a Warner archive. So my number 5 pick, the 1973 action crime drama thriller, Cleopatra Jones. My number 3 pick is the 1973 action crime thriller, Coffee. It's directed by Jack Hill, produced by Samuel Z. Arkoff, written by Jack Hill. It stars Pam Grier, Booker Bradshaw, Robert Dukai, William Elliott, Alan Arbus. The plot behind this: after a young sister gets involved in drugs and is severely injured by contaminated heroin, a nurse sets out on a mission of vengeance and vigilante justice, killing drug dealers, pimps, and mobsters who cross her path. And even though I think Foxy Brown is the movie that kind of kicked this off, I like Coffee because, again, they have her as a nurse. She is a professional, but she's such a badass in this movie also. So you have the combination of that Foxy Brown type of attitude with the same swag, same elegance, same beauty, but with a lot of grit to go with it also. And again, at the time, you weren't seeing a lot of females leading these type of movies, let alone black women. So my number 3 pick, the 1973 action crime thriller, Pam Grier's Coffee. And this is a Olive Films release. My number 2 pick is the 1970 action comedy crime thriller, Cotton Comes to Harlem. It's directed by Ossie Davis, produced by Samuel Goldwyn Jr., written by Chester Himes. This stars Godfrey Cambridge. I just talked about him in the Watermelon Man movie. Raymond St. Jacques, Calvin Lockhart, Judy Pace, Red Fox. Those were the big names at the time. The plot behind this: Harlem's African-American population is being ripped off by the Reverend Deke O'Malley, who dishonestly claims that the small donations will secure parcels of land in Africa. New York City police officers Gravedigger Jones and Coffin Ed Johnson look into O'Malley's scam. They learn that the cash is being smuggled inside the bale of cotton. However, the police O'Malley and a lot of others and themselves scrambling when the money goes missing. And this may be considered the beginning of one of the first black exploitation movies, even though a lot of people go to Melvin Van Peebles' Sweet Badass Song. This actually came out, I think, 6 months after Cotton Comes to Harlem. And it does a great job of showing a diversity in the black community. You have the black officers, you have the shady religious figures, and everyone else that goes with it. So, fantastic story, nice comedy. Again, with Godfrey in there. Godfrey at the time was as big as Red Fox. Richard Pryor wasn't even a name really. Godfrey was the man back then before Richard was. But great movie, iconic classic in the black exploitation period. Cotton Comes to Harlem, and of course this is a Kino Lorber pick. So my number 2 pick, Cotton Comes to Harlem. And my number 1 pick, this is the 1971 action crime thriller, Shaft. This is directed by Gordon Parks, produced by Joel Freeman, written by Ernest Tidyman. This stars the late Richard Roundtree, may he rest in peace, Moses Gunn, Charlie Cioffi, Christopher St. John, Gwen Mitchell. The plot behind this: cool black private eye John Shaft is hired by a crime lord to find and retrieve his kidnapped daughter. And I've looked this up, I believe Richard Roundtree is one of the first black actors to actually have a franchise of movies or a trilogy. I think after that it might have been Eddie Murphy. But very iconic. Initially, this was written for a white guy, and they decided to change it up a little bit, and they came up with John Shaft. And the movie was so popular, it spawned two other movies, as well as, I don't know if it's called a remake, because they had a remake with, say it with me, Samuel motherfucking Jackson. They had two other movies where Richard Roundtree actually is in the movie with Samuel Jackson. So, very popular movie. And again, it's one of the first times you saw a black male on there with that kind of swag and actually telling off the man or telling white people. At the time, black people really weren't allowed to do that on screen, or you'd never really seen that on screen before. Sidney Poitier, Richard Roundtree, Max Julian, these are the guys who actually paved the way for your Wesley Snipes, your Eddie Murphy, your Chadwick Bosemans, and the list goes on. Halle Berry's, Jacqueline Bisset's. These are the people that actually paved the way for them. So my number one pick for best black exploitation movies of all time, John Shaft. And these are my top 10 best black exploitation movies of all time. If you made this far in the video, smash a like. Give me the big thumbs up. If I didn't list your favorite movie in here, please leave it in the comments. Other than that, may the best of your past be the worst of your future. Don't forget to subscribe. Deuces.